kindergarten. So we've talked about our question of the week. We've talked about drawing conclusions, our comprehension skill this week, and we learned 2 new vocab words so far. So what we're going to do now, we're going to read our story again for the second time this week. Remember, this is called This is the Way We Go to School, a book about children around the world. The author is Edith Bayer. What does the author do? Do you remember? The author writes the words. And our illustrator is Steve Bjorkman. Do you remember what the illustrator does? The illustrator draws the pictures. So while we read this book today, we are going to use clues from what we read and from the pictures, and then we're going to use stuff that we already know in our brain, and we're going to see if we can make guesses about where some of the kids live in the world. Lucky for us, in the very back of this book, there is a list that shows where each kid lives, and there's also this really awesome map of the world that shows where each kid lives too. So next time when we're back in the classroom, I'm going to make sure that this book is available so that you can look at the map so you can see where all the kids live in the world. Are you ready to start? Here we go. 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, come along, it's fun to do. Ellen takes it nice and slow. Time to watch the flowers grow. Okay, we're going to make a guess right now using the picture and using what Ellen likes to do to guess where she lives in the world. So she has lots of flowers around her, and she can take it nice and slow. Can you think of a place in the world where there are lots of beautiful flowers, where people might like to take things nice and slow? If we look in the back of our book, it says that Ellen lives in Hawaii. Hawaii is one of our 50 states. It's an island. So Ellen lives on the island of Hawaii. Let's keep reading. Liz and Larry, as a rule, wear their jogging shoes to school. But at 20 minutes past, roller skates are twice as fast. Why might someone need roller skates to get to school? He needs to go nice and fast because it says at 20 minutes past, which means that he only has, if you were going to our school, he'd only have about half an hour to get there on time. So he has to go faster so he's not late. And the fastest way by far is by school bus or by car. Kindergarten, I believe this is how most of you come to school. By school bus or by car. So where do you think these kids live if they're coming by school bus or by car? They live in Missouri. Missouri is just a couple states away from Ohio. Jenny, Jerry, Pete, and Perry ride the Staten Island Ferry. Kindergarten, look at this. This looks like it's a really big city. I know that because I see really tall skyscrapers here. And there is a place near this particular city called Staten Island. Do you know which city they're talking about? I'll give you a hint. It's in the state of New York. They are in New York City. We've talked about New York City before. Have any of you ever been to New York City? I have. It's a pretty cool place. Cable cars take Jack and Jill up the hill and down the hill. Michael and his friend Miguel see the rooftops from the L. Horse and buggy rides, it's plain. Start the day for Jake and Jane. And in Philly, Mitch and Molly go to school by trackless trolley. Bianca, Beppo, Benedetto ride aboard the Vaporetto. Let's look right here. It says in Philly. Do you know which city has the nickname Philly? It's the city of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is in one of our next door states called Pennsylvania. It's right next door. And over here, we see that it says Bianca, Beppo, Benedetto ride aboard the Vaporetto. And the other day when we talked about all of our words and how they're new, I said that Vaporetto was not an English word. Do you know which language I said it was? I said it was Italian. There is a city in Italy called Venice, and they might say that this is a Venetian word. So they live in Italy. It's a country, and it's actually shaped like a boot. And if you remember, our saint, Saint Francis, the one who talked to animals, he's from Italy. Bundled up against the breeze, Niles and Solveig go on skis. We talked about this picture too the other day. We used this one to draw conclusions. So let's see if our conclusion was right. Remember, we talked about how there's snow on the ground and they're using skis to get places, and how we see Christmas trees or evergreens around too. And I asked if you could think of a place that has snow on the ground most of the year. So let's see where they are. Niles and Solveig. I'm going to look back here. Niles and Solveig live in Norway. So Norway is another country, and it can get quite cold there. Palm trees help keep Ahmed cool on his sunny walk to school. Mira takes time out to play. School's a hop and skip away. And watch Sepp and Heidi sail through the air from peak to vale. In this story, when they say peak, they're talking about which part of a mountain. They're talking about the top of a mountain, the peak. And then it said from peak to vale. Do you see where the cable goes? Down. So what do you think, what do we call the bottom part of a mountain? Remember when it's in between two mountains? We call that the valley. You can also call it the vale. Akenya leaves for school by train far across the mountain chain. Can you imagine if you took a train to school? I might fall asleep on a train because remember they rock back and forth, back and forth. It would put me to sleep. Kay and Faye and Flo and Joe go to school by radio. So kindergarten, I really like this page right now because it kind of reminds me of how we're going to school right now. We're not exactly doing radio. You don't just listen to me over the radio. You can also see me too because I'm making videos. So I like this because it reminds me of how we're going to school right now. It reminds me that everyone can go to school in a different way. Not everyone has to sit in a classroom. Some people can go to school by telephone. Some people can go to school by radio, or they can go to school by videos like this too. There are lots of different ways. So it's a nice reminder that there's not just one way to learn things. There's so many different ways to learn things. Bicycles bring Mei and Ling through the traffic of Nanjing. And beneath the dripping sky, Ram is riding high and dry. Do you know which city has a lot of double-decker buses like this? It's a city where my sister used to live. It's London, England. And I know we talked about the clock, Big Ben. A lot of you like to talk about that clock. Big Ben is in the city of London. William comes ashore by boat, counting seagulls while afloat. Carlos takes the town in stride. Luz prefers the countryside. And the famous metro line suits Igor and Ilana fine. Where do you think they might be? Okay, so we know it's a metro line, and we talked about that when we read the story about Max, when Max took the train to get the double chocolate wham burger. So we know it's a metro line, and then we see these really cool chandeliers. Where do you think this might be? Let's use clues from our story, from our book, our pictures, and then let's think about Max and Max taking the train. So let's draw a conclusion. Where do you think they are right now? I'm gonna check in the back. They are in Moscow. They are in Moscow. That's in Russia. You know how else I can tell that they are probably from a different country is their names, because not everyone has the same kind of names around the world. Igor and Ilana, those would probably be Russian names, especially Igor. Go by copter, by ski-doo, somewhere, sometimes, some kids do. Have any of you ever ridden on a ski-doo? They're a lot of fun. Make sure that you're wearing helmets, though, and make sure you're staying safe when you're on them. You come too. We'll look for you. The end. So kindergarten, these are some of the places around the world where some kids were going to school. Hawaii, California, Missouri, New York City, Illinois. Illinois is a state that's very close to us too. Pennsylvania, Italy, Norway, Egypt. Egypt is where they have the big pyramids. Israel. Israel is where Jesus lived. Switzerland, Kenya, that's in Africa. Australia, that's where we would have kangaroos. And remember, a kangaroo is a marsupial. China, India, Maine. Maine is another state, and that's pretty far from where we live. Mexico, Russia, and Canada. The ski-doo people were in Canada. So kindergarten, that's our story for this week. Next time I read you a story, we are going to have a big job to do. Okay, so next time I read you a story, you're going to need to make a movie in your brain. Kindergarten, thank you so much for reading with me today. I'll see you guys next time.